Hey, welcome everyone. It's 2024. It's January 11th. I don't know if I can say Happy New Year. It might be beyond the Happy New Year
Yeah, the
Is it
threshold.
like
There's a
the first
threshold
half
that
of the
you
month?
yeah. I'll just say Happy New Year because it's our first episode back. We're happy to return this year. We all had nice holidays. Well, at least Martin and I think, had nice holidays.
That's
but
all right.
yeah,
That's all
I'm
right.
just joking. Did you have a nice holiday with the dogs, Cleve?
Yeah, I did. I bought my wife a really cool Christmas/holiday present, and you'll never guess what it is. It's kind of cool, but
I don't want to. I don't want
no. It's not. It's not. It's not
risque or
spicy.
okay.
Actually, we're gonna do a falconry lesson. So
Ooh.
if you see a falcon flying overhead, just know I'm
Nice.
coming for you.
Nice.
So.
That reminds me. I just saw the trailer for the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I love Planet of the Apes. I remember watching the original '60s movies when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But in the trailer, they have a falcon that lands on one of the chimpanzee's arms. But that's very cool doing falconry. So
yeah, did you folks get anything or give anything that's exciting? Yeah.
no, my wife and I went up to northern Michigan for a long weekend, like a Friday to Sunday. So
That's nice.
yeah, last weekend just to end the holiday season. Well, at least hers. Her and my daughter went back to school and work this last Monday, so they had like 2 weeks off.
Okay, cool.
But no, I'm trying to think. It was we tried not to spend too much.
All right, Martin, remember our listeners don't know, so you can lie. Just say like you got a Bentley, you got, a new
I
estate.
finally got that new Lamborghini.
Oh, the
So happy
Lamborghini.
with it.
It's
It's
I like it.
fantastic.
I hope it was black. A black Lamborghini. Yeah.
Oh man,
So,
it's like
It's
bad.
yeah.
green. It's a
Stop.
green one.
Let's talk about. So you know what? Every year, I try to do my geek resolutions, like developer career resolutions, and usually it's like 3. I actually have 10 this year because I'm going hog wild, but that's out on a blog post. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes. But I usually do 3 resolutions. So I always say, like, every year everyone should learn or try to go deeper into certain subjects. And so for me, I'm learning Rust because .NET's a cool language. I love C#. I just keep hearing a lot of nice things and great things about Rust and how it can like do a lot of concurrency. I mean, concurrency is like built into the language, and it takes care of a lot of the issues with C++ and like garbage collecting and memory management and stuff like that. So I'm doing that. I'm trying to be a better speaker. Not that I'm going to go speak probably more places. I actually think I'm going to kind of not speak as much this year at events, but I'm trying to become a better speaker and not say ums and so's and like and all the stuff that you shouldn't say when you're on this kind of medium. But why do you guys keep learning, and what are you learning, or what will you be learning in 2024?
I think the why is a really simple one to answer. There's probably 2 answers. One, because you have to, because you're in a new job, or because you're doing some new project where some new technology is being used and you have to dig in. The other option is probably because you like software, you like IT, you like everything that's going on, and you just want to stay sharp and see what's out there and try it for yourself. So I'm currently in the first camp. I'm learning Java because I have to, because
No, I'm
part
just
of my
joking.
job is Java now. I have been doing some Kotlin and JVM and so on, and it is very, very similar to C# in a way. But still, there's some learning involved and getting up to speed with all the tools and all of that stuff.
Yeah, Java's kind of a couple generations behind C#, isn't it? From a language, from certain language constructs, like it takes a little longer for Java to get new features in the language.
I always thought that, but it seems that they now have, I think, 2 releases every year. One is an LTS release, one is an intermediate release that just introduces whatever is new at the time. So the language support and the language evolution is definitely going faster. I also had the impression a while back that Java was evolving much slower than C# and everything, but it looks like they caught up. It's still very, very similar in a way. So for example, they also have the var keyword now, like we have in C#, and there was an equal type of outrage like we had around .NET 2 timeframe, I think. So in a way, the communities are the same as well, or very similar at least.
Cool. And I think it's always good to dip your toes in another community just to see what that community is like and what pains and frustrations they're having, because we're probably all having around the same sort of frustrations, but I'm sure there's probably some uniqueness with pros and cons that each community probably brings.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I have a question for Martin, right? Like, C# and Java are both C-based languages ultimately. Like, what kind of struggles have you had, like, with your C# muscle memory going over to Java? Like, are there like things that have been frustrating, kind of like going to Java? Not that you're leaving .NET or C#, but you're trying to expand your horizons, right? So
yeah. So one of the reasons I'm digging into Java is because I'm also leading the Java advocacy team here at JetBrains now, and also trying to get up to speed with the language, writing the occasional blog post and so on. And because I thought it's a good way to learn the language, I'm also writing a series on some of the basics of the language. So I've been working on inheritance and polymorphism in the past week, and I think the languages are very, very alike, but there's a couple of subtle differences. For example, in access level modifiers. That's one that I remember from this week, where in C#, for example, you can declare a class as sealed, which means that you can no longer inherit from it. You can do the same thing in Java with the final keywords, but they also have a sealed keyword, which has kind of the same meaning, where you say, okay, look, this class is sealed, nobody can extend it, except these 2 or 3 or whatever number of classes you want to put in there. So it's kind of a very detailed way of sealing your class, but still allowing inheritance to some of the classes that are in there. But of course, coming from C# and you would just type sealed, you would see a lot of syntax errors and compilation errors because you're not out of the box giving that list of classes that you want to allow to extend that class.
Interesting.
Yeah, and historically, you told me a really interesting fact about Java and just the JVM, that like C# and .NET itself is really known for reflection, right? I know like the most current versions of .NET are kind of trying to wean people off the habit of reflection, but when it comes to Java, once you've compiled or like built your artifacts, there's like no type metadata makes it into the final artifact. There's like type erasure, right? Is that
yeah. So when you're using generics, for example, I think it is, the type information is removed, and that's essentially It feels like a workaround in a JVM to make generics work and to be able to make polymorphism work, for example. There are still ways to bring the type information in, get access to fields and everything. But it is something that might bite you if you don't plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you do depend on reflection and being able to reflect on what is going on in the language, what is there, what is not there, you might be surprised the first time you try that out.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say Martin's learning Java. I don't want to go too deep into this Java versus C#. Khalid, what are you learning right now?
Well, I've spent the last couple months really working in the JavaScript ecosystem, and we're working on something at JetBrains we call the guide, but it runs on a static site generator 11D. But we're using things that maybe 11D doesn't endorse out of the box. Like the JavaScript ecosystem is very flexible. So while 11D doesn't endorse things like TypeScript and JSX, it definitely supports them. So we've been working to kind of use those things like TypeScript, typing in our static site, and also using JSX. So for folks that aren't really sure what JSX is, it's a file format that lets you embed HTML syntax into a JavaScript class or a function. So if you're familiar with Blazor, it's kind of like Blazor, but not really. Like if you've ever returned
it's no C#.
Yeah. If you've ever returned a HTML string from like a method, it's very similar to that. So but on top of that too, I've been learning a lot about the web platform itself and web components. And if you follow me on Mastodon, you've probably seen a lot of posts about my adventures in web components. Right now I'm looking at a library called Shoelace, which kind of like takes a component library built on top of the web component model, so you can reuse those components across any technology stack. So, for example, if you were to write a bunch of components for Blazor, well, they're always stuck to the Blazor model. Whereas with web components, if you built on top of web components, you can use it in your ASP.NET applications, in your Java Spring applications for our Java person here on the podcast.
Not doing Spring yet.
And then I think Rocket is the Rust MVC framework. I forget. So like, I think that's really exciting, especially as teams become more polyglot, looking at web components and reusability and kind of leveling up your entire team rather than like the .NET side of your team or the Rust side of your team has been really, really, really interesting. So, but Chris, I have a question for you and even for Martin. Like, I would consider us all here somewhat proficient, maybe leaning towards expert level when it comes to .NET development. We don't know everything, but if we could probably figure it out. But kind of going into these other ecosystems, what's the learning experience been like in 2023, 2024 for you as you kind of like pick up topics and try to get into those ecosystems?
Yeah, it's hard. You know what? It's kind of like riding a bike. If you haven't ridden a bike in a while, it might be difficult to get that balance, but it's pretty quick. But I don't know. I mean, I've been really putting myself out there. I've been listening to lots of different podcasts. So there's one called Syntax that is really good. And half of they're very JavaScript kind of oriented on that podcast. And most of the stuff in all these libraries and frameworks, I have like no idea. Like they're all these cool project names that our industry comes up with. And but it's, it's good because it makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes you realize what people are going through in the .NET community that are new. So I think it's always good to learn something new, if nothing else, the knowledge, but just remembering what it was like to make mistakes and not know something and asking for help and being frustrated. So that's good. I
Yeah.
think being frustrated uh, is a good thing. Martin, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of the same. Although going from C# to Java, for example, language-wise, they're both C-based languages, so that's relatively easy, give or take a couple of major differences that might bite you when you're starting out. But still, in general, they're very, very comparable. The JVM and the .NET Runtime are also very comparable. I've even done some profiling a while back for a Kotlin application. That's the previous language I've been learning. But even there, you see there's a lot of similarities. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar enough to understand and quickly find your way or know what to search for on the internet. The one thing that I do find more difficult and more interesting as well is all of the different frameworks. So Khalid, you mentioned Spring, for example. For folks who don't know, that is a framework in Java that comes with a lot of base classes, of ways of structuring your application with dependency injection, with MVC style approach where you can have controllers and views and all of that. So like a lot of things are in Spring. Thing is, I looked at Spring and I was like, okay, not yet, because Spring has a lot of XML, has a lot of attributes, and has a lot of magic happening. But I can imagine someone coming from Spring to ASP.NET Core, for example, would have the same struggle. There's a lot of magic. There's a lot of things happening there out of the box that you don't immediately realize what is going on. So I would say in a way, they're also very comparable, that there is a learning curve. But I guess the moment you dig in, you will find that a lot of things are similar enough to translate the knowledge from one to the other. With one difference, that there's usually in every framework, and even in .NET, if you do two MVC frameworks, for example, you will find different ideas of how something is implemented and maybe take that from one language or one ecosystem to the other. So for example, having done a lot of Kotlin, Kotlin has lambdas like in C#. But if you have a lambda with just one argument, it automatically injects an its variable. So it's called its. If you only have one. And that's super useful because you don't have to declare the parameter that you have for the lambda. You just start writing the code with its. And I find myself in C# writing it as the name of the parameter in all of my lambdas that only have just one parameter.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up a good point, and we've talked about this on past episodes that, and I'll say, I feel that our ecosystem in the .NET, our community, isn't very innovative per se. We basically have, and most rely on what comes out of Redmond, which isn't a bad thing. There's very smart people at Microsoft, and they seem to come up with interesting things, but we don't really, it's that, the wave sign. We're kind of
the innovation curve.
We're kind of laggards
Yeah.
when it comes to new ideas. I wish .NET, and I think we tried to do it 10 years ago with alt.NET and stuff like that, and it just didn't seem to take. But I think it is good to stretch and learn and take a look at other communities and other frameworks and other languages to see what you can do better in your most proficient skills that you have. So
it is 2024, right? So the question I have for both you folks, is there a method or resource today that's kind of helped accelerate your learning and your skill set in a way that maybe, say, oh my god, I'm going to show how old we are, but 20 years ago just wasn't there and made things harder? Or vice versa, do you think the glut of information available makes things harder to learn today than it was back then?
I'll let Martin start.
Anecdotally, from this week writing that blog post on inheritance and polymorphism, I've been Googling for that as well, and finding a lot of posts for beginners talking about how this works, how to set it up, and so on. But all of them were very, I would almost call them shallow. That's probably too harsh, but shallow enough. And I get it. It's beginner type content. But still, me as someone who is proficient in another language, coming there will not find the information there to find more specifics. So usually what you do is you go into the IDE, try things out, and see what feedback the IDE gives, for example, because all of the information out there that is at this level of, I know my stuff in another language, but not in this language, is very, very hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will agree with Martin. I think most, if you're looking up a topic that you have no idea about, you're going to find that shallow. Basically, you're going to find in our industry, I always find that people like to regurgitate. They like to take all the content that Microsoft spits out on their documentation, which is awesome documentation, and they like to just put it into their blog and then spit it out. So it's almost like, so they can have a notch and say, oh, I wrote a blog post about XYZ. But really all you did was take the demos from Microsoft and put it into your own words. You didn't really advance it. And that is the kind of frustrating part. I think that's pretty much the free. So I always view learning, there's different layers. There's like that free layer that you get that you don't have to pay for. And you know what they say, quality of what you get for free is pretty shallow. So there's that paid level, which if I was to really, like, say Rust, if I felt I had to get my skills up in Rust, I would actually pay money to learn. So I kind of have. I bought a couple books. So in some ways I have paid some money. And I think that's really what people need to do, in my opinion. Like, get something like Pluralsight or pay for some other service. There's lots of stuff out there. LinkedIn Learning, they seem to have gone more the professional, non-technical route. But I don't know. I'm kind of frustrated because we have so much information out there. 20 years ago, we didn't have YouTube. Now we have YouTube, but do you ever find really good, deep information on YouTube? Not really.
It depends.
It depends.
I did want to tack on one thing in terms of blogs. So there is a lot of shallow, and again, this is between air quotes because they are more shallow than what you would expect. But there's also a lot of fantastic blogs out there. I think Khalid's blog is one of those where if you have an issue or you're learning something, you will find something on Khalid's blog, for example, about anything.net with an example, with some thoughts, with some interesting links to learn more and all of that. So there's definitely those out there as well. And you have the free level and the shallow level, but you also have that level, and that level is fantastic to find your information as well.
You do.
And I think the same goes for YouTube as well. You will also find those two levels on YouTube, I think.
But I think it's the 80-20 rule. 80% is going to be very generic, shallow. Like you could probably find that stuff all over the place. That information, it's that 20% that I would love to be able to dig into quickly and have a way to really have it curated for my searches and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
maybe AI can help find some of that stuff, those gems. Because I will say, I'll not to throw any more spotlight on Cleed, but his blog is good. I in 2023 I was digging in and trying to add hypermedia to my ASP.NET web APIs, and he had a blog post that got me going down a great
Mhm.
path, and I mean, I took it and put my own spin on it and did some stuff, but those are the ones that I really love. And I think you have to find those people. Yep, there we go. There's his. Just look up his name, and you'll find his blog post, which are very valuable. But I think I'm
Yeah.
rambling on. But
Well, it is interesting. Like you folks bring up like YouTube, um, like blogs have always been there, right? Like since the dawn of time, since the dawn of tech, the monolith of blogs has just kind of stood on the horizon. But something has happened. Clearly, like people are optimizing their sites to appease Google. So when you talk about shallowness, sometimes the intention of a lot of blog posts sometimes can be, okay, get the views, get the clicks. And I think you can also see that in some YouTube content where it's like it's either clickbaity or it's like a 11-hour course designed to make sure people continually come back,
yeah,
because no one's going to consume an 11-hour course in one sitting. It's not going to happen. So in a way, like the incentives are a little off today for content creators, because maybe the first goal isn't to educate people. Maybe the first goal of a lot of newer content is the clicks and the views and the traffic that people are kind of seeking, which is understandable. If that's how you make your living, you have to optimize for that, or else no one's going to see your stuff. um, I do think, in the realm of JavaScript, I have found AI to kind of be lacking for me, just because the content and the ecosystem itself moves and evolves so fast that I think even humans have a really hard time keeping up with like the iterations. If
yeah,
Yeah,
you've
but
ever
I was
gone,
going to say between asking the AI a question and getting the answer, there's probably 5 new frameworks.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, what is it? Chat GPT-4 is still based on 2022
yeah,
knowledge, which, I mean, if in the JavaScript world, that's like ancient history. That's
hmm
like,
yeah. If you've ever gone into a TS config file and seen all the switches and levers that are in there, it's kind of like it's wild.
so
It's like
so
Willy Wonka's factory. But
here's another that's just popped in my head. We have so many ways to bring people together. I
mhm.
mean, we have Slack and we have Discord and we have all these different ways. Do you guys leverage those technologies? Because for me, if I really have a problem, I come to like one of you guys and
Mhm.
ask you, hey, like I'm trying to figure this out. Do you guys know how to do this? Sorry. Uh, but do you guys have you found that having a small group of trusted community members around you is a good way to learn also?
Easy answer, yes. So I'm on Mastodon and Twitter still. There's a lot of people out there. If I have C# questions, for example, the network there is big enough on both of those platforms to always find someone who is doing something else. So if I have a Java question, I can go there. And then there's also the big benefit of working at JetBrains with people who are doing lots of different languages. There's always someone that you can find internally as well to talk with, to brainstorm about ideas, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll echo what Martin said. Like, Twitter was kind of, maybe still is, was always kind of focused on maybe like your id, like your ego. So in a way, it was like maybe not a good communication platform. Like it was a good promotional platform. But I'm finding for me, Mastodon kind of filled the void that Twitter maybe didn't, because what I'm finding is I'm still sharing my ideas, I'm still sharing screenshots, I'm still sharing like GitHub repositories of code samples, and people are showing up and having those conversations, those meaningful conversations, and saying like, "Oh, by the way, do you remember this?" Or, "Hey, I'm doing something very similar. Can we talk about this stuff?" So, like, absolutely. I think, in the age of AI, I still value RI, real intelligence, over AI, just because there's just so much context, there's so much experience that people have, that I'd rather have those human connections and talk through something. It's funny, we were talking about this with Rachel Martin in our internal chat. It's like, maybe today's AI is built in a way to support you and to kind of like make you feel comfortable in a way. Like it's designed to assist you and answer you. Whereas like where humans excel is they're there to help you but challenge you, to like maybe sometimes tell you like, "Hey, you're going down the wrong path," or like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Yeah.
I think that's where humans still really excel.
Yeah.
And to your point, that's great having those access points to people. So
yeah. And so this week, one of the big community events is happening, Code Mash, which I enjoy being at Code Mash. I kind of miss it, but I don't miss like the talks and stuff. I just miss seeing people and talking to people and going, "Hey, what are you doing these days?" and learning some new things. But yeah, I think the best way to learn is, and this is what I always say, be the dumbest person in the room. I love being, when I'm someplace, I love to make sure I'm the dumbest person in the world in the room that I'm in. What room, quote.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to learn something. I'm always going to learn something, because I'm going to be asking questions. And I always say, never be the smartest person in the room. I mean, those are the people, when they are the smartest person, all they're trying to go for is, like you said, the ego and making sure that they are viewed as superior. So I don't know, humble yourself and go and do things that make you uncomfortable and may make you look dumb. Because being dumb isn't bad. I mean, everyone had to start someplace, feeling like they were dumb at something. So
I think staying dumb is the problem.
well, yeah, don't stay dumb. Don't stay dumb.
To link this to one of our previous conversations, I will say that if you're listening to this podcast or watching the podcast, and you are learning something, I would definitely highly recommend you to write a blog and keep track of your learnings, because there is going to be someone else on the same path as well, and they might benefit from the insights that you're gathering from whatever you are doing. And you might actually be that 20% of really, really valuable content that is out there.
Yeah. We were talking about this before we got on the podcast. I'm on a mentor list at the university that I went to. I went to Michigan State University. And in the computer science program, there's a list of mentors that students can reach out to and have kind of like a Zoom call with, and they can have like an hour of your time, and they can just ask questions. And I find it really interesting that every single person, and I've done 5 or 6 of these over the last like 18 months, and they all ask the same questions, like, what do I do, and what should I do to make myself more valuable, to make sure that when I get out of school, I can get a job. And I always tell them, associate with the people that you want to be associated with, that you find valuable. Write about what you're learning. It may seem trivial to you, but you just learned something that someone else may want to know, like Martin says. I said, start blog, get out there on LinkedIn, and just find, and it's kind of corny, find your tribe. Find the people that make you better. Like, I love our community because we try to make people better, and give. And I always say, give more than you take, and give without expectations, because that's the only way that you're going to help someone, going to make yourself better, is by helping other people. So I know I'm getting like on a soapbox, but as we wind this episode down, it's all about connecting with people and sharing information and asking questions, and don't feel like you shouldn't ask questions. You may be an expert in some area, but you go into a new area and you think, oh, I can't ask questions. I can't like reach out to people because I'll look ignorant or dumb, and I can't do that. And like, I'm trying to teach my kids that, and I think it's the thing that you need to stress. So Martin, when your son grows up, just stress to him that always ask for help, because that's the only way that you're going to get better. And I think that's the basis for this whole talk, is ask for help. It does. And asking for help means searching on the internet, looking at YouTube videos, like asking AI for information, but also reaching out to people that you trust and that have your best intentions, and get the information that they have. Even if it's wrong for what you're doing, it may glean something that you can do better in something else.
Yeah, I mean, all very well said, Chris. Like, I agree with everything you said. Definitely, I will say from a personal experience, having a blog will give you also intangible skills. One intangible skill is like, I could spend months trying to find a solution, write a blog post, and within minutes of publishing it, someone will leave a comment, say, this is wrong. So, or say, I have a better solution. So I think for me personally, a blog has made me think critically about the ideas, but not necessarily take stuff personally. It's like thickened my skin a little bit, right? Like, so that
there's
is
that, but also there's the fact that people can find it, but also when you write down what you are trying to learn, you can actually help clarify your own thought process doing that.
Yeah, it's cool. So I'm personally looking forward to 2024 and kind of what we're all learning. We keep talking about Chris teaching us Rust in a future episode, so
maybe
hold you to that.
He's not set stored procedures yet in this episode.
I haven't,
so
and
we're getting there.
I'm not going to, but I did create before the holidays. I created a talk for conferences on kind of Rust for C# developers,
Ooh,
which
cool.
is going to make me. And I actually submitted it to Techorama. Hint, hint, Martin. But
Dude, you're gonna get him in trouble. Ethics violation.
I know.
Chris, why are you slipping him that big wad of cash? Stop.
Yeah,
Stop.
the Venmo's coming. No,
that Lamborghini that my wife gave me didn't pay for itself.
yeah, you still need the premium gas, right, for it. So yeah, but no, this was a great talk, and I hope people got something out of it. And I hope people come back to us and say, you're full of bull. You're full of like baloney, as the old people say.
Hey, who doesn't like bologna?
I love pickled bologna. I have some pickled bologna in the fridge that I forgot to cut up over the holidays for like cheese and crackers. And I think this weekend we're supposed to get like 14 inches of snow tomorrow through Saturday, and so it might just be hunker down and eat all the stuff that's been collecting in the fridge.
All right, I'm gonna name this episode when we do the title card. We're gonna call it Lambos and Pickled Bologna, and we'll see. We'll see if it works.
The ultimate clickbait.
Yeah,
we gotta clickbait it.
Yeah.
So,
right. That's never been in the same sentence ever before. Lamborghini and pickled bologna. But thanks everyone. We went over a little bit. We try to stay between 30 and 40 minutes. We're over a little bit, but we really appreciate people coming and joining us and listening to us, and please tell us if we're wrong or what we missed. Maybe there's a new area of learning that people know that they want to share with us. We're always looking for new ideas for future episodes. So come back, join our little tribe, and please kind of tell us what you like and what you don't like, and all that. So, and I'm sorry for the shiny forehead this morning, but
fine.
Thank you. So thank you guys. Happy New Year. I hope you both have successful and prosperous 2024s.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Likewise. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.